It was supposed to be just another mission. A 19-year-old fighter pilot climbed into his plane. He was heading to war for the first real time. But then everything went wrong. An enemy fighter locked onto him. He had only seconds before bullets would tear through his cockpit. In that moment of pure fear, he made a choice. He broke every single rule. He dove straight down at crazy speed. What happened next was impossible. But it changed everything. It saved thousands of lives. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. December 20th, 1943. The sky over Bremen, Germany was cold and gray. A 19-year-old fighter pilot named Charles Yeager sat in his P-51 Mustang cockpit. His hands were shaking on the control stick. His heart was beating very fast. This was his 8th combat mission, but today something would happen that would change everything. Charles came from a very poor family. He grew up in Hamlin, West Virginia, a small town high in the Appalachian Mountains. His father worked in coal mines and natural gas fields. His mother worked in stores when she could find work. The family had very little money. When Charles was young, he had to help his family survive. He would hunt squirrels and rabbits in the fields and forests. He would shoot them with a rifle to put meat on the family table. His eyesight was exceptional. He could see a squirrel at 300 yards in a tree. His hands were steady and calm. His mind was sharp and quick. Charles loved to watch planes. Sometimes old military planes would fly over his town. Young Charles would run after them, watching them disappear into the clouds. He dreamed of flying one day. His friends laughed at him. They said, "Charles, you are just a poor boy from West Virginia. You will never fly planes. That is for rich city boys." But Charles did not listen to them. He worked hard in school. He helped his father when his father was sick. He took care of his family. And he never stopped dreaming about flying. When World War II started, Charles saw his chance. He knew this was his moment. He went to the military recruiting office and asked to join the Army Air Forces. He was 17 years old. The officer looked at him. The officer saw a poor boy with no college education. The officer was not sure. But the military was desperate for pilots. So many pilots were being killed in combat over Europe. The military could not train new pilots fast enough. So they decided to take a chance on Charles. They sent him to flight school in California and Arizona. The instructors did not believe he could do it. Boys like Charles usually failed. They said flying needed special education. Charles did not have that education. But Charles proved them wrong. Flying came naturally to him. His hands were perfect for controlling a plane. His eyes were very sharp. He could see things that other pilots could not see. He could feel what the plane wanted to do. He could listen to the plane and understand it. One flight instructor said to Charles, "I do not know how you do this. You did not study the books like the other boys. But you fly better than most of them. You have a gift." Charles just smiled. He said, "I just listen to what the plane is telling me." By March 1943, Charles got his pilot wings. He was commissioned as a flight officer. He had about 270 flight hours of flying experience. This was not much compared to experienced pilots. But it was enough. In November 1943, Charles was sent to England. He was assigned to the 357th Fighter Group, 363rd Fighter Squadron. He got his own P-51B Mustang fighter plane. It was beautiful and shiny and new. He painted a name on the side, Glamorous Glenn. He named it after his girlfriend back home, a girl named Glenys Dick House. He loved that girl. He wanted to marry her after the war. Charles looked at the other pilots in his squadron. They had college degrees. Some came from very rich families. Some had private pilot licenses from before the war. They looked at Charles with his Appalachian accent and his poor background. They thought he was different. They thought he did not belong. But Charles did not care what they thought. He was a good pilot. He was brave. He was going to fight for his country. The military leaders were hiding a terrible secret. American fighter pilots were dying at catastrophic rates. Nobody talked about it officially, but everyone knew it was happening. In August 1943, American bombing planes flew deep into Germany to bomb a place called Schweinfurt. The Germans shot down 60 American bombers in one single day. That meant 600 American soldiers were killed or captured. 600 families got terrible news that day. In October 1943, American bombers attacked Schweinfurt again. The Germans shot down 62 more American bombers. That was another 620 men killed or captured. The loss rate was more than 20% on deep bombing missions. This meant that if 100 American bombers flew to Germany, 20 of them would be shot down. 20 times 10 is 200 men dead. Every single day. The military commanders calculated the odds. American bomber crews had to fly 25 missions to go home. But if 20% of planes were shot down each mission, the odds of surviving 25 missions were almost zero. Almost every bomber crew was going to die. The problem was distance. The American fighter planes that could protect the bombers could not fly far enough. The P-47 Thunderbolts and P-38 Lightnings could fly with the bombers only to the edge of Germany. Then they had to turn back because they did not have enough fuel to go further. When the American fighters turned back, the Luftwaffe fighters attacked the bombers like wolves attacking sheep. The bombers had no protection. The German fighters would shoot down many American bombers. The American military found a solution. They had a new plane called the P-51 Mustang. This plane could fly all the way to Berlin and back. Finally, the problem was solved. Or was it? There was another problem. A problem that nobody understood. Even though the American P-51 Mustang planes were as good as the German Bf-109 planes, American pilots were losing the air battles. American pilots were dying too fast. Why was this happening? The answer was in the military tactics. The American military leaders had written rules for how pilots should fight. These rules said that pilots must fly in perfect formation. They must stay in straight lines. They must stay in boxes next to each other. They must follow the leader. Never leave your group. Never fly alone. These were the rules. The military had spent millions of dollars developing these rules. Pilots practiced these rules over and over and over. The rules were supposed to be gospel. The rules were supposed to be the only way to survive. But the German pilots flew completely differently. German pilots did not follow these rules. German pilots flew with more freedom and individual choice. They could move around. They could attack from different angles. They could use creative tactics. German pilots had learned to fight in Spain and Poland and France and Russia. They had real combat experience. They had learned what worked and what did not work. German aces like Adolf Galland and Gunther Rall were killing American pilots 3 or 4 times for every German pilot they lost. Some German pilots like Egon Mayer and Walter Nowotny had kill ratios exceeding 10 to 1. That meant they shot down 10 American planes for every one German plane that was shot down. The American military commanders did not understand why this was happening. They thought the problem was that American pilots were not following the rules well enough. So they made the rules even stricter. They said pilots had to fly in even tighter formations. They said breaking the rules was the same as getting killed. But the rules were wrong. The military leaders did not want to admit this. Their entire system was based on these rules. They learned these rules in the 1920s when flying was new and pilots did not know anything. They believed these rules with all their hearts. The commanders did not know that one 19-year-old boy from West Virginia was about to prove them completely wrong. On December 20, 1943, Charles Yeager was flying his 8th combat mission. He was escorting American bombing planes to Bremen, Germany. 24 American fighter planes flew together in perfect formation. They flew in straight lines. They stayed in boxes. They followed the rules exactly. "Formation is perfect," the squadron commander said on the radio. "Keep it steady. Keep it tight." All the pilots said they understood. They flew for a long time. Everything was quiet. Maybe nothing would happen today. Maybe they would just fly back home and nobody would get hurt. Then someone said on the radio, "Fighters. Enemy fighters at 11 o'clock. German planes approaching." Everyone looked up. Far away, they could see other planes. These were German fighter planes. They were Bf-109s. They were coming toward the American bombers. The commander said, "Hold formation. Stay together. We will defend the bombers." Charles held his plane in perfect position next to his wingman. He could see the German planes getting closer and closer. His heart was beating very fast. His hands were tight on the control stick. This was real combat. This was not training anymore. The German planes came closer and closer. Then something terrible happened. A German plane came down from above. It came very fast. Charles did not see it coming until it was very close to him. The German pilot was a veteran named Ludwig Francischetti. He had 11 confirmed kills. He had been hunting American pilots for 2 years. Francischetti fired his guns. Bullets came past Charles's plane. They missed him, but just barely. The bullets were so close that Charles could hear them hitting the air. Charles's training kicked in. He was supposed to turn with the German plane. He was supposed to stay in formation. But the German plane was coming so fast and so hard. If Charles stayed in formation, the German plane would shoot him down in the next second. Charles forgot the rules. He pushed his plane down. He went into a dive. He pushed the stick forward with all his strength. His plane went down faster and faster. The ground was coming closer and closer. The German pilot followed him down. The German pilot fired again and again. But Charles was going so fast now that the bullets could not catch him. Charles pushed his plane down more. Down, down, down. The ground was very close now. Only a few hundred feet away. Charles could see trees and buildings and roads below. He was flying so low that he thought he might hit the ground. He was going very fast now. Very, very fast. His plane was going faster than it had ever gone before. The engine was screaming like a wild animal. The wings were shaking and vibrating. The controls were very hard to push. It felt like the plane might break apart at any second. But something strange was happening. Charles's plane was going faster than the German plane. Much faster. The German plane could not keep up. The German plane was falling behind. Charles could see in his mirror that the German plane was getting smaller and smaller. It was falling back. It was not catching him anymore. Charles had 1 second to think. Then he had to pull up. The ground was very close. If he did not pull up now, he would crash and die. He pulled up hard. He pulled the stick back with both hands. The G-forces were so strong that he felt like the seat was pushing him down with great weight. His vision turned gray. He almost blacked out completely. But the plane pulled up. It came back up into the sky. Charles was alive. Charles looked behind him in his mirror. The German plane was far behind. It was still going down. The German pilot had tried to follow Charles's dive, but it was too steep. The German pilot had to pull up earlier than Charles. Now the German plane was below Charles and behind him. Charles had an idea. He turned his plane. He came around quickly. He got behind the German plane. The German plane was trying to go faster to escape. But the German plane could not go fast enough. Charles fired his guns. He fired and fired and fired. The German plane was hit. Smoke came from the engine. The German plane fell. It was going down. Charles did not know if the German pilot survived. Maybe he did. Maybe he did not. Charles looked around. Everything was quiet now. The German plane was gone. The other German planes had left. The fight was over. Charles flew back to join his group. The other pilots were waiting for him. His commander was very angry on the radio. "What were you doing?" the commander said. "You broke formation. You left your group. This is not what we trained you to do." Charles said, "Sir, that German plane was going to shoot me down. I had to do something. I had to break the rules or I would have been dead." The commander said, "You broke the rules. Formation flying is the only way to stay alive. You should have stayed with your group. You could have gotten yourself and others killed." But Charles was still alive. And the German plane was shot down. Charles had done something that nobody was supposed to do. And it had worked. When Charles landed at RAF Leiston and walked into the debriefing room, he had to report what happened. The officers wanted to know everything. Charles told them about the dive. He told them about going down to the ground so fast. He told them about the German plane not being able to follow him. He told them about how his plane got faster than the German plane. He told them about getting behind the German plane and shooting it down. One officer said, "This is impossible. The Bf 109 can outdive any American plane. Everyone knows this. You must have made a mistake. You must have seen a different kind of German plane." Another officer said, "Or maybe you are just confused from combat stress. This kind of thing happens to new pilots all the time. You thought it happened, but it really did not happen. Your mind is playing tricks on you." An older officer who had been flying planes since the 1920s said, "The rules are very clear. You cannot outdive a Messerschmitt. Their engines are designed to go down faster than any other plane. This is physics. Physics does not lie. Physics is a science. You cannot argue with science." Charles tried to explain what really happened. He tried to make them understand. But nobody believed him. They said he was confused. They said he was wrong. They said he should never break formation again. Charles was angry. He knew what had happened. He knew his plane had done something special. He knew he had been faster than the German plane. But nobody believed him. The military leaders had written the rules based on the old knowledge. They believed the rules were perfect. They believed the rules could not be wrong. They believed that breaking the rules would get pilots killed, not save them. Over the next 2 weeks, other pilots reported strange things too. A pilot named Captain David fought 2 German planes. He did what Charles did. He dove down to the ground going very fast. His plane got faster than the German planes. He shot down one of the German planes. He came back and told his commanders what happened. Another pilot named Lieutenant James had the same experience. He dove away from 3 German planes attacking him. His plane was faster than their planes when they were both going down very fast. He escaped. He was alive because he broke the formation rules. More and more pilots were reporting the same thing. When they dove at very high speed, their P-51 Mustang planes could go faster than the German Bf 109 planes. But the military commanders did not want to hear this. This went against everything they believed. This went against all the rules they had made. This went against their whole system. Then one day, a very famous American pilot decided to test this idea scientifically. His name was Captain Don Blakesley. He was one of the best American pilots in Europe. He had shot down many German planes. He was respected by everyone. Captain Blakesley took a P-51 Mustang up to 25,000 feet. He flew over the English Channel. Then he dove down very fast at different angles. He measured how fast his plane went. He measured how fast the plane could accelerate when it was diving. He measured the speed at different altitudes. Then he did the same test again. And again. And again. He wrote down all the numbers. He did many experiments. He did many more tests. He collected all the data. He organized it carefully. When he was done, he had proof. His tests showed that the P-51 Mustang could go faster than the Bf-109 when diving at very high speeds. The proof was in the numbers. The proof was scientific. The proof was real. He wrote a detailed report. He sent it to the military commanders at 8th Fighter Command Headquarters. The commanders read the report. They got very angry. At a big meeting with all the important officers, Captain Blakesley showed his report. He explained his findings very carefully. He said that the rules about formation flying were wrong. He said that pilots could fly better if they had more freedom. An old colonel stood up. He said, "This is crazy. I have been flying since the 1920s. I know how planes work. I know how combat works. I know the rules. You cannot tell me that a plane can outdive a Messerschmitt. I will not accept this. You are trying to destroy our military system." Another general said, "You are trying to destroy our military system. You are telling pilots they can break the rules and survive. This will cause chaos. This will make everything worse." A third officer said, "Captain Blakesley, you are saying that our military training is wrong. You are saying that all the rules we made are wrong. This is not possible. Our training is based on the best knowledge. Our rules have saved many pilots. You cannot just throw away everything we have built." Captain Blakesley stayed calm and professional. He said, "Sir, I understand that this is hard to believe. I understand that this goes against everything you learned. But the numbers do not lie. When the plane goes above 450 miles per hour in a dive, the P-51 can go faster than the Bf-109. This is a fact. This is science." The old guards did not want to believe it. But the numbers were there. The science was there. The proof was there. Then something important happened. A very high general named General William Kepner was in the meeting. General Kepner was different from the other generals. He was older. He had fought in World War I himself as a young pilot. He had seen many young pilots die. He had seen tactics that worked and tactics that did not work. He was a smart man who could think clearly. General Kepner stood up. He looked at all the other generals and colonels. He said, "Gentlemen, I do not care about the rules we made in the 1920s. I do not care about what we believed then. I care about keeping pilots alive today. I care about winning the war. I care about results. If these new tactics are better, then we should use them. If the rules we made are wrong, then we should change them." The room was very quiet. General Kepner said, "Captain Blakesley, I believe you. Show me more proof. Test these tactics more. If your tests confirm these findings, I will change the rules. I will authorize new tactics." For 2 weeks, test pilots flew many, many tests. They went up very high. They dove down very fast. They measured everything. They tested different speeds and different angles. The tests confirmed it. It was true. It was absolutely true. The P-51 Mustang could go faster than the Bf-109 at very high speeds in a dive. On February 3, 1944, General William Kepner gave a new order. He said that pilots could now use new tactics. They could dive at high speeds. They could use individual initiative. They did not have to stay in perfect formation all the time. They could fly with more freedom. They could fight in a way that made sense. The old military leaders were very unhappy. They felt like their whole system was being attacked. But General Kepner was the boss. They had to accept it. Now the American pilots could fight the way they wanted to fight. They could use the new tactics. They could dive at high speeds. They could attack from different angles. They could use individual initiative. The results were amazing. Before February 1944, American fighter pilots were shooting down about 2 German planes for every American plane that got shot down. This was the ratio. For every American plane lost, 2 German planes were lost. This sounded good. But it was not good enough. The German pilots were better trained. They had more experience. American pilots were dying too fast. But then something changed. After the pilots started using the new high-speed diving tactics everywhere, the ratio changed very fast. In March 1944, the ratio was 3 German planes for every American plane. In April, it was 4 German planes for every American plane. By June 1944, it was 6 German planes for every American plane. This was amazing. This was unbelievable. The new tactics were working. The new tactics were winning the air war. On February 20, 1944, the 8th Air Force launched Big Week, a massive campaign to destroy German aircraft production. Over 1,000 American bombers flew to strike targets deep in Germany. They were protected by P-51 Mustangs flying with the new tactics. March 3, 1944. The sky over Berlin. Charles Yeager, now with 12 confirmed kills, led a flight of 4 Mustangs at 28,000 feet. Below them, 300 B-17 bombers were approaching the German capital. Luftwaffe fighters were rising to intercept. Bf-109s and Fw-190s from JG-3 and JG-11, some of Germany's most elite units. Oberfuhrer Heinz Baer, an ace with 170 kills, led a swarm of 4 Bf-109gs. He spotted Charles's flight and began a climbing attack, planning to use his altitude advantage for a diving pass on the bombers. Charles saw them first. His exceptional vision gave him 30 seconds of warning. Instead of maintaining formation and executing a coordinated defense, Charles did something that would have been forbidden 3 months earlier. He rolled inverted and dived, not away from the German fighters, but toward them, building enormous speed. His wingman, Lieutenant Clarence "Bud" Anderson, followed without hesitation. The other 2 Mustangs maintained high cover. Baer saw the Americans diving and assumed they were fleeing. He adjusted his approach to the bombers. This was exactly what Charles wanted. At 600 miles per hour, a speed that made the controls feel like they were welded solid, Charles pulled up underneath Baer's formation. The Bf-109s were traveling at 380 miles per hour, focused on the bombers ahead. They never saw the Mustangs coming from below. Charles fired a 2-second burst at the trailing 109. The German fighter exploded. Baer broke hard left, but Anderson was already there firing. Baer's wingman went down trailing fire. The remaining 2 109s dove away. Charles and Anderson did not pursue. They climbed back to altitude using their massive speed advantage to regain position above the bombers. The entire engagement lasted 45 seconds. 2 German fighters destroyed. 0 American losses. The bombers continued unmolested to their target. This pattern repeated across the sky. American pilots using the new tactics were achieving kill ratios that were impossible under the old doctrine. The Luftwaffe, accustomed to predictable American formations, was suddenly facing aggressive individual attacks from unexpected angles. German pilots noticed immediately that something had changed. Oberleif Johannes Steinhoff, a veteran ace, wrote in his diary, the American fighters have changed. They no longer fly in rigid formations. They dive from impossible altitudes at terrifying speeds. Our fuel-injected engines which gave us such advantages no longer matter. They are faster than us now. Much faster. General Adolf Galland, commander of Germany's fighter forces, reported to Hermann Göring in April 1944, "The American Mustang pilots have adopted our own energy fighting tactics and improved upon them. Their aircraft's high-speed performance exceeds our capabilities. We are losing experienced pilots at an unsustainable rate. We cannot replace these pilots fast enough. We are losing this air war." The bomber crews noticed the change too. The pilots in the bombing planes started to survive more often. Before this, the bombing planes were being shot down very often. Maybe 1 in 5 bombing planes was shot down. That was a 20% loss rate. But after the fighter pilots learned the new tactics, the loss rate fell very quickly. In October 1943, the loss rate was 20%. By June 1944, only 1 in 25 bombing planes was shot down. That was a 4% loss rate. This meant that thousands and thousands of bomber pilots were alive who would have been dead. A bomber pilot named James Howard wrote home to his family. He said, "The fighter pilots are different now. They do not just protect us. They hunt the German planes. The German pilots are scared of them now. We feel safe now. We think we will come home to our families." In May 1944, Charles Yeager had his most dangerous fight. He was flying at 24,000 feet over a city called Brunswick in Germany. He was with his group. They were looking for German planes. Then he saw them. German planes. Many German planes. One German plane came toward Charles. The German pilot was very skilled. Charles could see that. The German pilot made perfect moves. The German plane was beautiful to watch. But it was also scary. Charles knew that this German plane was flown by an ace. An ace is a pilot who has shot down many planes. This German ace was named George Peter Eder. He had shot down 36 planes. He was very dangerous and very experienced. Eder came at Charles from above. He was diving down. He had the advantage of height and speed. Charles turned to meet him head-on. Head-on means they were flying right at each other. Both pilots fired their guns. Both pilots missed. Now Eder expected Charles to climb up and try to gain height. Height is an advantage in a fight. Most pilots would try to climb. But Charles did not climb. Charles did what he had learned. Charles rolled his plane upside down. Charles pushed the stick forward. Charles dove down at a very steep angle. Charles was diving at the ground below. Eder followed him. Eder thought his plane could outdive any American plane. Eder had fought American planes many times. Eder knew what American planes could and could not do. But Eder was wrong. Charles's plane went faster and faster. The speed reached 550 miles per hour. The plane was screaming and shaking. The controls were very hard to push. Charles could see Eder's plane in his mirror. Eder was trying to follow, but the dive was too steep. The G-forces were too strong. Eder's vision was turning gray. He could not take the G-forces anymore. Eder had to pull up. He had to stop the dive before he blacked out completely. Charles kept diving. When Charles reached the lowest point of his dive, he started to pull up. The G-forces were so strong that it felt like someone was sitting on his chest with great weight. His vision turned gray. He could barely see. But the plane pulled up. The plane came back up into the sky. Charles looked in his mirror. Eder was still lower than Charles. Eder was still slower than Charles. Eder had tried to follow the dive, but he could not follow as far as Charles. Now Eder was in a bad position. Eder was below Charles and behind Charles. Charles was now in a perfect position. Charles turned his plane. He got right behind Eder's plane. Charles fired his guns. The bullets hit Eder's plane. Smoke came out of the engine. Eder's plane was hit very badly. Eder had to fly his damaged plane back to his home base. The plane was damaged so much that it could never fly again. But Eder survived. He got to fly another day. After the war, Eder wrote about this fight. He wrote, "The American pilot who fought me on May 8, 1944 did something I thought was impossible. He dove away from me and somehow ended up behind me. Our military teachers said this could not happen. But it did happen. We were wrong about American planes. We were wrong about American pilots." By June 1944, the German Air Force was in very bad trouble. The best German pilots were being killed faster and faster. The German military could not train new pilots fast enough to replace them. The training program had to be shorter and shorter. This meant that new pilots were not ready for combat. Many of these new pilots died on their first fights. The American Air Force had won the air war over Germany. American fighters could go anywhere they wanted. German fighters could not stop them. The bomber planes could now fly safely over Germany. The bombing campaign worked. Germany was being destroyed by bombs. By the end of the war in May 1945, the American Air Force had completely won. The German Air Force was finished. Many young pilots had survived who would have died under the old rules. Thousands of them. Maybe tens of thousands. Maybe hundreds of thousands. Charles Yeager shot down 11.5 German planes. He was shot down once, but he escaped. He hid with French people who helped him hide from the Germans. He got back to England safely. He went back to fighting. He flew 64 combat missions total. This was a lot. Most pilots did not fly this many. After the war, the military wanted Charles to test new planes. Charles became a test pilot. He flew experimental planes. He flew planes that had never been flown before. On October 14, 1947, Charles flew a special plane called the Bell X-1. This plane was supposed to break the sound barrier. Breaking the sound barrier means flying faster than the speed of sound. Nobody had ever done this before. Nobody knew if it was even possible. Charles flew this plane higher and higher. Faster and faster. Then he broke the sound barrier. He was the first human to fly faster than sound. The things he learned in combat helped him do this. He learned about energy. He learned about speed. He learned about controlling a plane at very high speeds. These lessons from combat flying helped him break the sound barrier. Charles Yeager lived a long life. He became a general in the military. He retired in 1975. He never said that he invented the new fighting tactics. He was very humble about it. He said, "I was just trying to stay alive. I was 19 years old and scared. I did not want to die. When I was in danger, I did what felt right. I did not think about it. I did not plan it. I just did it. If it helped other pilots survive, I am very happy. But I did not invent anything. I just reacted when I was in danger." The tactics that Charles Yeager accidentally started are still taught today. Every fighter pilot in the American Air Force learns about energy fighting. Every Navy pilot learns it. Every Marine pilot learns it. Every fighter pilot around the world learns it. Energy fighting is about trading height for speed. It is about using a plane's best abilities. It is about making smart moves at high speeds. It is about understanding that sometimes you have to break the rules to survive. The P-51 Mustang became the most successful American fighter plane of World War II. The military made almost 16,000 of these planes. These planes shot down about 4,500 enemy planes. More than any other American fighter. The fighter group that Charles was in, the 357th Fighter Group, had the best record of any American fighter group in Europe. They shot down 609 German planes while losing only 106 American planes. That was a ratio of 5.7 to 1. That means for every American plane lost, almost 6 German planes were lost. This success was because the pilots in this group learned the new tactics early. They figured out how to fight the right way. They understood that sometimes breaking the rules was the smart thing to do. Don Blakesley, who fought to validate Charles's accidental discovery, retired as a colonel with 15.5 confirmed kills. He never received the Medal of Honor despite being recommended 3 times. He told an interviewer in 1989, "The real heroes were kids like Charles who figured things out when everyone told them they were wrong. I just had enough rank to make sure people listened." Charles was the one who had the courage to do something different. William Kepner, the general who overruled his staff and authorized the new tactics, retired as a lieutenant general. His February 1944 directive is studied at military academies today as an example of leadership, the willingness to challenge doctrine when evidence demands it. Innovation often comes from unexpected sources. The teenager from West Virginia with minimal education saw something experienced officers missed. The system nearly rejected his discovery because it contradicted established doctrine. How many other innovations have been lost because they came from the wrong person or challenged the wrong assumptions? How many lives could have been saved if organizations were better at recognizing truth regardless of its source? Charles Yeager died on December 7, 2020, at age 97. His New York Times obituary called him the most famous test pilot of his generation. It mentioned breaking the sound barrier. It mentioned his combat record. It did not mention that he accidentally revolutionized air combat by doing something everyone said was impossible. Sometimes the greatest innovations come not from careful planning but from desperate improvisation. Not from experts following established procedures but from outsiders who do not know what is supposed to be impossible. Charles did not set out to change military doctrine. He did not have a big plan. He was just a 19-year-old boy trying not to die in his first combat mission. But when he broke the rules to survive, he changed everything. He saved the lives of thousands of pilots and soldiers who would have died. His idea about fighting in a new way became the standard way to fight. Every fighter pilot in the world still uses these ideas today. A B-17 pilot named Robert Morgan tracked down Charles at an air show after the war. Morgan had flown 30 bombing missions over Germany in 1944. He told Charles, "My crew calculated that we should have been shot down on our 8th mission based on 1943 loss rates. We flew 22 more after that. Because of you and pilots like you, we came home. My wife is alive. My children are alive. My grandchildren are alive. Because you figured out how to keep us alive." Sometimes the greatest changes come not from the smartest plans but from someone who is just trying to stay alive and doing what feels right. The next time someone tells you that something is impossible because it breaks the rules, remember Charles Yeager. Remember the 19-year-old from West Virginia who was told by military leaders that what he did was impossible. But he did it anyway. And he changed the world.